Good morning. Thank you so much for joining. I am pleased to introduce Dr. Mary Thomas, who is joining us from the San Diego Supercomputer Center in San Diego, California. Dr. Thomas holds a PhD in computational science, and her research has primarily focused on high-performance computing, coastal ocean modeling, cyber infrastructure, web technologies, including Amazon Web Services. She's also a faculty member in the Computational Sciences Research Center at San Diego State University. I first met Mary at the Supercomputing Conference, where she has sponsored teams at the Student Cluster competition, which is quite a lot of work and quite a lot of fun. So congrats on hosting those teams. In addition to all of those wonderful things, Mary has deep embedment in the community, in the high performance computing community, expertise in cyber training, high performance computing software and programming, as well as cyber infrastructure and emerging technologies. Today, Mary is here as part of the PTI seminar series, and she'll be speaking to us about cyber training, including best practices for training the next generation workforce in high performance computing. Very pleased to welcome to the podium, Dr. Thomas. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that nice introduction, and thank you guys for coming on a Friday in the middle of summer, and I really appreciate it. And it's nice to see some old friends and colleagues here, people I've worked with from the late 90s. So today I'll just try and give you an overview of what we're doing at SDSC, the San Diego Supercomputer Center, for our HPC user training. There's a lot of training out in the world, but I focus on what you need to teach people to do supercomputing on our resources as well. For example, there's 85 million OpenMPI tutorials out there. We don't need to do that, but we need to show you how to do OpenMPI on our machines, which are different and unique. So that's one of our focuses. So I'll just talk about, for some of you who might not know what parallel computing is and high performance computing systems are, I'll just briefly go over that. Excuse me. And then what we went through in refactoring and rebuilding our training program when I came in to start doing this. It took a lot of work, a couple of years. So describing that is worth talking about. And then what our current program, training program is all about right now. And a really important aspect is synergistic activities and working with other communities. And then we focus also on students. So we have a high performance computing students program, and then a little bit about broadening impact, which is really important. Who are you reaching? Who's taking your training? And then conclusions and future plans. So San Diego Supercomputing Center has been around for quite a while. They had a 25th anniversary, so they've been here. And there's a timeline you can go and look. I won't spend a whole lot of time, except that it's been a leading edge HPC R1 level 1 in Exceed and Access, a resource provider. And lately we've been getting into innovative resources like an AI machine called Voyager. So we have a few hundred employees. We do 3,000 training and event participants per year. That number is actually going up. I'll show you some numbers about that. 10,000 Unix users, 1 million users on our gateways. They're big on our machines. And 1 million plus students have taken a big data course that's out on Coursera in AI and machine learning. So it's a big institution. One of our flagship machines is Expanse. I'll talk a little bit about that, but it's all about distributed computing, edge computing. This machine was designed with 2 features in mind. One is it's for modest scale computing, only needs 800 nodes or 10,000 cores. That's modest scale as opposed to the petascale systems. And then also adding in innovative computing resources like Kubernetes, composable systems, gateways, and things like that. So that's a picture of Expanse. I love to show it because we're back around from liquid cooling to liquid cooling again. So, what goes around comes around, even in computing, and they love to put lights in the computer to show you the cooling coils. And come to SC and we'll give you a tour. A lot of you probably already know about parallel computers. They were based on commodity hardware. This is supposed to show two other images of computers, so I'll just skip over that. HPC is everywhere. Most of you who are in the field, you know, high-speed networking, large-scale data storage, now at petascale and 100 gigabit per second, and a lot of information. The point of this slide, and this is what I show to a lot of the students, is that the internet is a high-performance computing system. It's cyber infrastructure with the billions of people running hundreds of applications like Facebook and YouTube and Netflix. They're consuming and producing data at massive rates, and it's not going away. So it's petascale, zetascale. It's getting huge, and you have to be able to have networks that can handle it and computational resources behind it to manage all the information. So really the point is everybody lives and breathes in a supercomputing environment. They just don't know it. And you have to be able to locate the data somewhere cheap. A new idea is in Iceland, it's already very cold, so cooling is not that challenging. So they're actually envisioning data skyscrapers. This is literally a skyscraper size concept. And they're looking at building these now. The data has to go somewhere and it has to get there fast. And so I'd like to move this. I can't read all my titles. So HPC is everywhere. We're part of supercomputing environments and we need gigabit networks. That's the point of these slides. And so, what is high performance computing from our perspective for HPC and cyber infrastructure? You're aggregating computing power into very large systems. You have cyber infrastructure to connect to all these resources together that I just pointed out. And we have to deliver a much higher performance than standard, what's commodity now, even though the commodity is at petascale, we're now doing exascale. So we're always at that cutting edge. And then we solve these large problems in science and engineering. So everybody in this room who's facilitated people to work on computers know that, if you're going to be using 10 to the 5th cores on Expanse or 10 to the 6th cores or more on Frontier, those are really complicated challenges. And teaching people how to do that is really hard. And my first key point is the people who come to me and say, Mary, how do I do something on a supercomputer, don't want to be there. I do not have an audience, unless you're a computer science person like me, they don't want it. They want to run their modeling, their machine learning model on their laptop. And then one day it's like a week later, their job's still not done. That's when they come to us. So you have to, I try to train everybody, train the trainers to appreciate this is not where they want to be. So we have to make that easier for them. So we do a lot of training, and you have to design a training program to make it open and approachable for them. So when I started back at SDSC around 2018, I started looking at high performance computing training. I'd been teaching parallel computing for 16 years to senior graduate introduction to high performance computing, that level. So I had a pretty good idea of what they needed to know, but these were computer science majors or maybe people who were already embracing the fact that they wanted to learn parallel computing. And as I searched, and I spent a lot of time Googling, didn't have ChatGPT, but I could find a lot of events. The events were over, but there is no information. Very few, especially HPC centers, I focus on them, were having what I call data provenance. Event is over, but it's gone. Where's the recording? Where's the training material? Where's the PDF? Where's the GitHub repository? And finding that and putting it together took a lot of work on my part. So it's as if you went to a tutorial, you took the tutorial, and the 30 people in the room are on the Zoom session now. They know where that GitHub repo is, but nobody else does. So I started thinking, oh, we have this lack of a training material provenance. So we spent a couple of years getting that. And I'll talk about when that to me is an important best practice. If you go to the work of having an event and create training material, like right now, they're going to record it. Thanks to COVID, we now record things, and then they'll make it available. So people can come back and find that talk by the famous Mary Thomas and say, oh yeah, I wanted to look at that one slide. But it's important to recognize that people want to do that. So we decided to reorganize and refactor our training program. First thing was we had to decide from our perspective, what kind of training modalities are we using? So we have webinars, which to us are somewhat passive. tutorials and workshops, which are a little more interactive. And we're in person usually, and then COVID came along and it became virtual. And summer institutes, which are a big heavy lift, we do two now, one in cyber infrastructure and machine learning and one on general data sciences. And we target people who are maybe experts in their field, but they don't know HPC. So really introductory level. And then for many years, we've been doing an HPC user training series of 12 to 14 weeks. This year we took it off because my trainers were tired. We did 100 events or something in 2022. So we ramped it down a little bit to give everybody some breathing space. It's a lot of work doing the training and then self-guided training. And so what we decided to do as we organize our material, we want to archive everything so you can repurpose it and reuse it. And so you go to an event and you can find the training material by clicking through a couple of places. And then we have, I'll show you a training summary page and define keywords. And for us, just getting all of the events databased into the content management system, Cascade, took a lot of work. We had to get design input from the web people and permission and all of that. But just the basics, title, abstract, date, a bio on the presenter, and then make it so we could build all our training pages dynamically. And so get those training terms integrated into all of our web content was a goal. And then creating dynamic event pages. So we're using that data. And my goal was, if I have a title, I don't want to be hand typing that title anywhere. I want to pull it from a database and use it. So everything's dynamic based on the database, starting with that first, if it's an event that generated it, we store that material. And then pull content and develop tools as needed for training, and I'll talk about that. So the other thing is then how do we expand our communities? We had to define who are we reaching out to? Undergraduates, graduates, researchers, staff, industry, exceed, access, what levels and what kinds of people are we trying to target? And for each of those, they would require different kinds of training and different outreach. And so we identified our workforce users, which is what I would call this top group, and what systems we're supporting. Expanse, which is a CPU GPU system, Voyager, which is all AI, Habana, I think is the name of the chip, and TSCC, which is a condo system for UCSD, and then participate and support national programs like Exceed and Access. And then different HPC students, so we can work with and attract undergraduates and graduates, training that next generation. That's really important and a passion of mine. And then improve ways, identify ways to improve equity, diversity, and inclusion. And the metrics gathering part of that and doing surveys to reveal and suss out who's attending, it's really important, and it reveals whether your program's doing outreach in the ways that you need to, especially with NSF's focus on democratization of AI and other technologies. And so we identified these maybe as part of an NSF workforce development. That NSF workforce development is another key targeted community. And we link to that through the cyber training program and the CIP program. We've got awards in that. So who are you trying to reach? It tells you who to write for and who to send emails out to. And so our current program, based on all of these design decisions, and like I said, it took a couple of years just to get to the point where I can say, we have a training program. We refactored and redid our landing page for education and training. And our perspective is there's K through 12 programs and college through career. College all the way through. And we broke it into those. So we have little fancy cards now that get you there. I'm in this box here, advanced computing training. We also have the CIML Cyber Infrastructure for Machine Learning Institute. And we have next week is going to be our third year for doing a 3-day institute. And then data sciences, like I said, we also do that. So advanced computing training program. When you come to our pages, you'll see, first of all, you might start on the event page. And this is all dynamic. It's all built from that database. And it stays alive. The event doesn't die when it's over. What we do is we put it into a training catalog. And I'll show you a picture of that next, I think. We dynamically build the pages and tools again in the background to support this. And we're moving towards searchable content where it's metadata so that you could come to my portal and I might recognize, or you might say, tell me about what you've done in Singularity, and up would come all our training material. When an event is over, the material is training material. It's no longer event material. The event is done. So that's a key focus on how you store and access and retrieve. So I don't have a picture of the training catalog, but if you went to it, you can find it on the web page here. It would list all of the past events. I'll show you the interactive page, and that has a list of them as well. So just a little bit of the numbers of demonstrating our success. So the chart up here, I apologize, it got moved as we loaded it to a different machine. You can't see, but behind this is the cumulative training registrations, that red mark right there, which is somewhere around 12,000. So we've had a lot of people who register, but the ones who come, it's different. So we track that as well. That would be that yellow curve underneath that. And then a new number that I'm tracking is the commitment of our training community, user training hours. So you take the number of days of an event, the number of hours of an event, and that first of all gives you the training days. I'll show you some more numbers on that. But then how many hours did these people who come to a 5-day workshop commit to? And so it's getting very, very large, but it also tells us what kind of effort we need to be putting in. That's a lot of people over 3 or 4 years. 12,000 I think is big. Other programs, maybe they're bigger, but for us, we're pleased to see it continuing to increase as well. And then we have some pretty good demographics. Okay, so the training catalog again has links to these associated training materials. So our overall training content, this is from a 2022 report, 60 plus current and archived events. We have this interactive training page where you can come and look at our different materials and get the video, the text. We have the text, it's a searchable text. And you can get, also it will have a link to any GitHub repos or PDF talks and other related material. So we had 4,000 visitors, which doubled from 2021, just coming to look at those interactive videos. And every training event with recordings is converted. And we converted 37 events last year, which was about 180 hours of recording. We have hundreds of hours now. If you have a full day event and you might have 6 presentations, that's 6 hours of different materials. But what we've been doing is decoupling a full day event. It used to be I would go to my website at SDSC and find a 4-hour video recording and then go, oh my gosh, how do I find what I want? And so a colleague, Jeff Sale, said, well, let's just make it searchable and interactive. And this has emerged to be very useful. You click on the transcript, it takes you to that part of the talk. You click on the talk, it takes you to that part of the transcript. So you can go back and learn, get to the part that you really wanted to go to. And again, it's all built dynamically. Talk really briefly about some of those tools I mentioned. As we were developing and looking and refactoring, we know we needed a portal. So about 2 years ago, the Expanse User Portal got created using on OOD. A little caveat there, and there is a paper, I didn't put the link in here. We don't allow certain software components to run on our machines that sit on top of the login node. So Jupyter Hub cannot run on our machines, and neither can the OOD portal. And so what they did was the team, we worked on moving it off of the login node and standing on its own VM. And the OOD people are working with trying to integrate that in as well. That leads to heterogeneous computing access. One OOD portal that could access all of the machines in your system. Right now it's a one-to-one mapping. And the worst part is if you're from the Exceed days or TeraGrid days or whatever days when you're running jobs on 10 different systems, I would need 10 different OOD accounts. And so we need that one-to-many mapping. I'm a big proponent of that. Okay, so but there should be an image here of a Jupyter notebook that we allow people to launch on our HPC systems that pops up on an interactive compute notebook with an HTTPS URL. If you know anything about Jupyter notebooks, you know the default is a an insecure HTTP URL that they give you. And so we worked hard to develop a system where everything launched on Expanse is on an interactive node A, and B, it's a HTTPS connection between your local web browser. And then this picture in here is the Cyberinfrastructure Professional Training Program that we had funded by the NSF Cyber Training Program, where we're teaching, training the trainers and training the mentors, basically. It's a new project that's now called Skype, S-C-I-P-E, I believe, pulled out of the cyber training program. And the idea is to identify people at your institution or collaborating institutions who want to help other people use high performance computing and cyber infrastructure resources and services. So we have a group of people we're training right now. They get paid. You get an FTE for many FTEs for this. And you pay them to learn, and then they'll match up with the Access Match program and help facilitate projects through your institution and the Match program to get these projects running on supercomputers and HPC systems. So the subtlety is you want to get people who have domain knowledge, mostly not IT, but some are IT. A bit like a physicist, a bioinformaticist who wants to help other people run applications on a supercomputer. And so that's the targeted community. Slide. This one stayed together. So as we've developed all our tools, and I think we might have a minute or two, and I'll just show you the tools live. We'll just go to a browser and I will show you my 3 tools, or 2 of them that I wanted to show you. But as we got the training program working, now we have a training program working, and hopefully the slide with the numbers shows up, but we've had 12,000 people register over the 3 or 4 years we've been tracking. And half of them, about a 54% attendance participation in the room rate, which is pretty good in training. If you haven't done that before, that's a good number. And we've had good diversity. It's not great, so we work with the UCSD organizations to talk about how do we outreach better. Like, we didn't understand that it's not just the people who came to the room that count, it's who did you reach. So let's say we have 200 people applied last year for our Data Sciences Institute, but we could only accept 50 because that's all that we have in the room. But we still reached 200 people. My CIML project, we have the next week is our Cyber Infrastructure for Machine Learning Institute. We had 90 people apply from, of those 90 people, 67% were from MSI institutions. That to me was like, I won, I reached them. We couldn't accept them all, but that means you're also getting the word out. And that's really important for democratization, right? Don't forget people, make sure you're reaching them. So what we did was we kind of coalesced. Now we're looking at how do we build workforce development communities through these synergistic and connected activities. And hopefully my slides for that show up. But we are hosting and training these workshops and events. We're tracking our outreach. We're making sure we're giving support to make sure that people are able to use our resources. And some of those we do with gateways and different communities. And then making these tools to make it easier to learn about and use HPC. And ultimately, our long-term plan is to now have a training gateway. Continuing engagements with our partners. It's really important to stay engaged with the vendors on the machines you're trying to train people to use. So we have Dell and AMD and NVIDIA on Expanse and the Habana people on Voyager. And what I do is I ask them if they want to give a training, a webinar, or they want to help do one of the modules in a training class, and they really respond well to that. And it's a great way to keep connected. And also, it can lead to sponsorship of things like HPC students. It costs money to send a team to compete anywhere, and the student cluster competition at SC is massively expensive. So getting funding and also the support from the vendors as the students try to learn to use the hardware, getting a vendor to donate hardware for the competition. So forming those relationships, I think, is the best practice. They want to be involved if they can. So make sure to consider that. And then broadening your impact. We purposely have been pursuing NSF cyber training grants and CSSI for other programs because that's the first time in my life as a researcher associated with NSF that they actually give you money for people. as opposed to money for the research and graduate students. And so it's very rare, and I encourage you all to start looking at it if you haven't. And the CSSI program is very similar. In the fall, we're planning a PI meeting for NSF that will be a merging of CSSI and cyber training. They want us to get together and talk. The CSSI people are making tools, but they're not good at training. We're good at training. And so maybe there's some collaboration that can be an outcome to make adoption of the technologies they're funding better. So that's like our overarching, and the rest of my slides, hopefully they're supporting this position, but this is our approach now for training. So anyway, okay. Well, so the topics that we decided to teach are parallel programming concepts, basically. And this is an insight of Bob Sinkovitz, who's our parallel programming and application expert, is that a lot of people that come to Expanse, they don't compile, they just use Amber. They just, compile their code to use a tool that's already installed. They're not the tool developer. They're not developing Amber. That's probably 80% of the workforce. So he's been working on a series of modules that we'll be doing for just the basics of the concepts, a little bit about Amdahl's law, but no open MPI, no MPI programming. They don't need that. They need to understand how to scale their program. And then running applications for different areas and the numerical methods, password security. We talk about cloud computing, visualization. And we do have a second part that talks about, does cover OpenMPI or MPI, but how to use it on our machines. How to develop a singularity container where you can compile and have your own environment or whatever. We do recognize that there's a community. And so when we do this HPC CI training program, it's typically about 14 weeks. And again, this year we took time off from it. The first part is like the parallel programming concepts. The second part will be shorter and cover more in-depth programming. Okay. This is just a listing of the events that we had last year. And I just include this, it's a little hard to read, but some of these are webinars, some of these are training that would be more than 1 hour, a tutorial, a workshop, and some of them are others like the HPC AMD HPC user forum, we help run that. It is a commitment to a community, it's a synergistic activity, so I count that in my domain. And it has impact because what we do is we bring that community of people using AMD CPU computing and now Instinct computing together. And so we try and categorize these. So the other thing to point out is when you're trying to do the metrics to assess your training participation, I used to just count like the 5-day Data Sciences Summer Institute as one event, but from my trainer people, and the people tracking stuff, it's 5 events, right? And so we're trying to work out how to assess the number of participants, because every day you start out with 50 people coming, and by the 5th day you've got 40 maybe. But each day you have a different participation, but you want to get an estimate, a true estimate, and they were right, I hadn't thought of it, is that it's 5 days of training. It's 5 events that people show up for. So we're updating, I'm trying to refactor my older numbers to reflect that. Anyway, this is a typical calendar for us. It's at least 1 or 2. This one I think is about 40 events. So more than 1 a week, or about 1 a week. And then we take July off usually. So what's the next slide coming up here? Oh, good, you get to see, this is the slide that you should have been seeing now, not on that other one. Yay, I get to show you. So I've been talking the numbers and now you can see. So I did a total aggregation of all of our events. Again, the caveat is at the beginning, I'm not breaking it down to multiple days. I just have to go back and finish that. But from 2018 to 2023, 110 events over that total time, 207 training days, 12,000, almost 13K cumulative registrations, 6,600 actual. And then the training effort contact hours, 822. That's the screen. The red is the cumulative registration and the yellow is the participation. I have no expectation of this kind of numerical performance, and to make some sense out of it is important. So you aren't, this number here is specifically calculated by taking the number, like I said earlier, the number of hours, number of days, gives you training hours and training days, and then the number of people who showed up. And that's how I get these numbers. And I get asked a lot, well, how about your staff? How much time? Well, certainly if we have 822 training hours and there's one staff member in the room, I have 822 hours out of that time period that we had that FTE. And usually takes at least 3 people, the person who organized it, the person counting and tracking who's showing up, and then facilitators. And for a multi-day event like next week at CIML, we'll have 5 to 10 staff there helping at different times doing talks, working with people. So it's a big, and I want to go to estimating the number of FTEs we should be planning for in our programs. And that way, these awards that get won that depend on training, we might ask them to allocate 2% to the training effort. It's that significant. The numbers are, I keep going, will somebody redo them for me, because they are large. Anyway, if you're planning a training program or you're involved in it, start trying to estimate that FTE effort. It's not as small as maybe people think. Okay, yay, the slide looks good. So tracking impact, outreach, and diversity. We do our best. I could do like a whole talk on this. We actually have a paper at PERC from the CIML Summer Institute that we talk about it. But we make sure we stay in touch with our on-campus EDI people. They've taught us so much about how to be aware in the right directions and to track all event registrations and participations. And from that, we get attendance, but that's really important. And reach out more and more. The more you can reach out, the better. And it's a big lag we're feeling without the Exceed mailing list. Who are we able to reach out to? So I'm going to start pushing for access to give us a big mailing list as well. Otherwise, we spend a lot of time going around trying to grab a bunch of email lists. We don't know if they're current. And Susan Rathbun and the ER team, they do a lot of work. And she goes, we got this, Mary, don't worry. And okay, fine. So, but we do need to be able to reach communities. If we can't tell them what's happening, they can't be involved. So it's not like we try to not reach, we just don't know how. So that's a big effort for us. We have an Expanse MSI program where people who are part of MSIs can get special allocations, and then focused events like the Institute's Neuroscience Gateway workshop and the student cluster competition teams. I'll talk about that in a moment. Need to keep an eye. And the University of California, because of their focus on Hispanic serving institution ratings, we've now been declared an MSI through our HSI link, which is great. Training program and outreach goal, just a few of the metrics. These are probably the kinds of demographics you would expect to see over here. 50% male, and then these are graduate students, and then a smattering of postdocs, undergrads, faculty, researchers, and government. And then the gender is, again, at UCSD, they have a pretty good gender diversity, about 49 to 51% female to male. But in the computer science department, it's not. It's like 20%. We still do better than like the CS department, but it's not good enough. So we're continually trying to reach out better, which is why I was so proud of the CIML result, that 67% are MSIs. It's probably because we have a lot of UC people, but nonetheless, we're able to count that. And we do look at ethnicity, so we're tracking that as well. Again, I want to get moving along here. The synergistic activities, come on. Okay, that broadens our impact, obviously. If we're working with vendors and we're introducing our students to vendors, and we're working with these partners and having them come to us and give a talk, they know more about their community. So it's I've talked about that off and on throughout the talk. So these programs are important, deploying tools and making sure we're using the vendor tools that our people want. Everybody wants to do roofline, but at the end of the day, NVIDIA Insight's probably easier. So you're making sure we've got the tools on our systems that facilitate people learning how to do things. And then we also do training. We'll have a whole webinar on performance tools, for example. And HPC students, that's building next generation, really important. The student cluster competition is a big effort with, we've found ways to make it more impactful. And then our partners, a lot of partners. I'll just go this way. A couple of our cyber training, cyber infrastructure enabled machine learning project. Again, that's the workshop we're having next year. The idea is to identify a SIML literacy. What do people need to know to do machine learning at scale? Not just machine learning. The people who come next week, they already have to be machine learning experts or not just taking their first class. They have to have already engaged. And then we teach them how to run parallel Spark, machine learning at scale and what that means, how to run a job on a supercomputer. So that's what we're doing next week. And then the cyber infrastructure profession. This is a new effort that's, like I said, just started by NSF, and they've carved it out to a program called Skype. What's new and novel is these proposals. They are 4 FTEs. You have to share them with at least one partner institution, but that's 4 FTEs per year for 5 years to teach people how to help other people run HPC systems. And something I see friends out here who've been doing this kind of thing for years is getting money to help us develop the tools, and then to train people to use systems is really important. So we're lucky to be part of this community, and it'll be going for, I think, 10 years. I don't know, I'm guessing, but more than 5. REHS, we've done a lot of work with the research experience for high school students is one of our K through 12 programs. We get a few each summer, and we have them do interesting projects. So we worked with them last summer on the Icicle project, the intelligent cyber infrastructure with computational learning in the environment. It's an NSF democratization AI project, and our students just worked with learning about knowledge graphs and writing some clients command line in notebooks, and their software ended up being so useful by their software engineer who tests software that is part of their training, part of their software catalog release. So I was very surprised and pleased. Okay, and then the AMD User Forum, we've been doing it for 3 years. It's all over the world. I'll move along. I wanted to talk about HPC students. It's really important to me to reach that next generation, right? Undergraduates especially. So we have a supercomputing club that's now part of the IEEE campus chapter. And we do the user training mainly targeted to those students. And then we use that to prepare them to be student cluster competition champions, and then the REHS. So we're trying to encourage more and more students to go to our supercomputing, our annual meeting, and other technical like PERC. And so the main venue is the student cluster competition. This is a rarefied group. They only allow 10 teams, 6 students per team. And if you get selected, they pay for the student registration and housing, but you have to come up with the rest of the budget. So it's not for all schools, which is unfortunate. So one of my passions is to get a discussion about nationwide student cluster competition teams. But in the meantime, what I've done is this year we got selected again, but what we do is we pick a group of students and we build an application. And when we've been selected, we have the travel team, that's the core team that's gonna go, and then the home team. And they prep all summer long and all fall long together. They get credit for an independent study class. That way, instead of just having 6, I have 20, and we get graduate students come and play, and we have free access to the building 24/7. They have a room where their cluster is. A lot of community gets built, and this impacts them for life. But by adding in this concept of the home team, that means more kids will be learning about supercomputing, and they all get job offers. It's because they know so much. So the travel to supercomputing is exciting, and last year they got the HPL LINPACK benchmark, so they did pretty well. And we'll see what happens next year. So again, this is just a summary of a lot of the activities. And K through 12, just to mention, Ange Mason has been leading this, and she has all these different programs that run all year long, Pi Wars, summer camps, workshops, etc. And then conclusions, just perfect time. Okay, so future plans and conclusions. I think our changes have been impactful and they've resulted in more training. Of course, I had low-hanging fruit. In 2018, they had 2 events, but nonetheless, the new changes we've made are producing good results. So I'm encouraged that we're doing some things the right way. A combination of the training types, and in 2023 through next year, we said we were going to ramp down, and now we're already at 27 events. And so we'll probably still get to 30, but at least we won't have done a couple of the really heavy ones. And then we're refactoring this to reduce our staff time. And we're always trying to add in whatever we need for the next new technology that our users will be facing, like AI is big, Kubernetes, Singularity, and we repeat those in a lot of different ways, and then working with the students. One of the things I didn't put on here is we are talking about a training gateway. But before I can do that, I will take the training material catalog and we're going to start assigning metadata tags. And I'm working with the Icicle team people there and some other people with Cornell to define the metadata we need to define training. I'm coming from the HPC training down, and for that I need to know about ontologies for supercomputers and hardware and queuing systems, and there are no common definitions. So we'll have to come up with a way to make our own, but then contribute to ontology development so people know how to talk about these, because there'll be a lot of tools out, especially through this Icicle program, where they're embedding AI into cyber infrastructure and vice versa. You need to automate stuff, so we need to know how to identify what machine are we on, what's my account, what's my authentication. And so all that metadata needs to be there. Plus, if I have a webinar on a particular topic, what's the metadata that we want? We could curate it. Probably we will. Having 1,000 terms in there, that doesn't make a very searchable catalog. So my goal is for you to come to my training page, enter a term or two, and then up will come all the related training material, hopefully in a nice looking way. But all the related material that might interest you, and then you can start filtering it. So we have to have a curated catalog as well. And we're working with Susan Merringer and Scott Lathrop and some people at TAC. A large group is starting to talk about that from the training material perspective. And we have a paper at PERC, SEHET workshop if you're interested in that. And so I think nobody works alone. That's just some of the people that help us. There's a few people that should be on there, and the vendors. Again, the vendors sponsor us in a lot of amazing ways, including swag, which is always fun. Okay, and that's it. Thank you for your time and attention. I appreciate it. Questions? Critiques?
Thanks, Mary. It's an exciting talk. So I'm an application scientist. I am interested in some kind of, maybe statistics or something like that in terms of what fields of science are getting represented in this training and how, what applications are getting attention, from the your trained participants. So that's one thing. And then, generally, how are you tracking, what is the impact of this training? How much of that is coming back? How many of them are coming back to HPC as users, things like that.
So your first question is big. I think there's 400 organizations on Expanse. I didn't include that slide, and maybe there's at least that many domain. There's probably 40 to 50 domains being actively run on Expanse. We don't target particular domains. That's non-scalable. So I would count on the community to do that training. What we would do is We haven't targeted like, ocean modeling, computational fluid dynamics running on Expanse, although that's an interesting way to do it. And I think we might be able to do that now. My problem is training the people to actually do it. But the Amber community is big on Expanse and they do training. And so what you're making me think is I should identify that training and have that information on my site, where to get training about these different scientific disciplines, because we just don't have the people to do that. That's a good question. Your second one is tracking people and tracking who comes back. Is that what you were asking?
So
Oh.
if they're getting basic training, are they coming back as HPC users?
Well, yes, of course. We don't do that particular number, and I do a survey, and my survey shows that a lot of people come back. I have to work on that. That's a really good suggestion. I don't think I do it explicitly. I'm just happy I'm getting what I am getting because the tools for that are complicated, but that would be a good one. Thank you. I'm going to make a note of that. Yeah.
There's a question on.
Yeah, so question. So the tools that you use to automate all of the uploading videos and tagging them onto your database for the training videos, those seem really neat. Do you share those tools out with others, or?
Yes, I can share. Yeah. There's, a lot of it is just grunt work of filling out a spreadsheet and doing analysis. You can tell for some of the metadata, but we use event registration systems that have forms like similar to a Google form. The interactive video one, we're working on making that cleaner. And you're welcome to it. I can try and demo it once I exit this while other people are asking questions. Are you talking about like that kind of a? So I'm willing to share whatever we're doing. Just get in touch with me. But only one of them is, I think this is good. You can. I'll have to go there this slowly.
The related question is, you mentioned Cascade, right, which is the content management system. Is that open? I mean, is that used by anybody else other than SDSC?
So the question for people online was about the Cascade management system. We at IU use the Cascade content management system. That's how we interact with our web pages. But Tanya has a question.
I
think green equals on.
Green means go. All right, you had mentioned surveys, and I'm the evaluation. I was doing the HPC training evaluation for Pittsburgh Supercomputing for Exceed. I'm actually presenting it at PERC, so I'll see you there. Do you ask about satisfaction? Do you ask any questions about?
Yeah, this year we refactored our training survey for Expanse, and we're using a simple Likert scale. Mm-hmm. So I'm very happy, it is 5, and I'm not happy is 0, and then in between. So yeah, we do ask them, are you satisfied with your user experience? Are you satisfied with the tools, or how happy are you with them? Those kinds of questions, yeah. We do want to know that. And
have you disaggregated by gender? Do you know, like, when I was doing, we found a big difference between the satisfaction in the women in person versus online, and the satisfaction in men in person versus online. So I was just.
We do anonymous survey for Expanse. We have enough trouble, frankly, getting people to participate, right? Getting a 10% participation is big. So we don't. I would love to know the DEI. We get that more from our in-event surveys. We have more information on that, but I haven't looked at online versus in-person yet, because all my training's been done. Next week is my first in-person training event since starting this program. I mean, in 2019, I'm wrong. We did a few, but starting in 2020, of course, everything went virtual, and it's not as anonymous. So I could try and mine that data. That's a good idea. I want your paper. We can swap papers. Thank you for the question. Arjit, yes.
Yeah, we have a question here online from Michelle who wants to know more about the CI professional training. Her question is, do you screen participants to help them know what they need to know? I would guess that domain experts have different training needs based on domain.
I need to repeat that.
Yeah, her question is about CI professional training, and she wants to know, do you screen participants to help them know what they need to know? I would guess domain experts have different training needs based on their domain.
Great question, and the answer is a big fat yes, which is why I'm so motivated to create a dynamic searchable training catalog because for each of the CIPs, we only have 5 right now. And that's among the 3 institutions collaborating. The idea is that they are all unique and there'll be common things like they may all need to learn parallel computing. This year I put them all into, we did a quick turnaround. I've never had a proposal go so quickly from the day you submitted to the day you're actually active. But this one, what we did was a jumpstart program. So I put all my CIPs into a boot camp, an AI boot camp at OSC. So I also believe in eating our own dog food. The training should come from cyber training if I can. But in the meantime, we do have them doing customized things like a workforce development, or some of them needed to learn about Jupyter notebooks more, like how to host a Jupyter hub. And some of them are going to be, they'll both go to the CIML and the DSI institutes, but it will be customized at some point. And then the other part of it that she didn't ask, but it's part of CIP, is you were obligated to have 20% of their efforts support the access program. And NSF dropped that onto the access team, the match team in particular, and it wasn't part of their proposal. It's a brilliant idea. It's just going to take a couple of years to get it working. But there's a lot of work that the access team does for support, like they're helping to bring the open on demand onto all the sites that want it, the Pegasus workflow. There's beyond just getting somebody's code running, there's a lot of other work they're doing. And our CIPs can pick and choose among all of those. Good question. Great program. I encourage everybody to look at it. Good funding. Okay, this is a dynamically built site for the Institute from last year. It shows all the different events, and then we might go to Bob's introduction to what comes up is a web page that shows the video. We're now streaming these off of YouTube because they're the fastest, they're cheap and free, and it's less work. So we take our video from an event, we clean it up and get the endpoints off, like, is my laptop working? Stuff like that. And then we send it off to a company called, I think it's Rev, R-E-V. They clean up the text. You know, they look to make sure in the text are no unintended insulting words. But the nice thing is you can say, well, Bob talked about Amdahl's law. Let's go look at that. So you click on that, it moves you through the talk. And then gives you the transcript. And so now I can see what he's going to say. So let's say I'm looking for a particular term, but he also talks about MPI. Open. I don't like that color there. Open MP. So I'm going to have it switch and look for places where he talks about OpenMP. And now it moves the transcript and it moves me to that part of the video. I'm hoping, and judge from some of the responses we're seeing of people accessing these, it's a useful way to look at the material. And then also what's up here is a link to Bob's slides and a GitHub repo where he has some exercises. And so that's our, associated training material. But this really was created. So for me, I would just call this the creation date, the creation author, for example. But really, this is now just training material, and I can repurpose it however I want. And that's where we want to go next year with these searchable keywords. Our interactive video page, which is here, lists hundreds of hours. And this isn't all of them, it's just the ones that we feel are still relevant, but they go back to 2019. And I really feel that's important because there's somebody who took a training event, came to one of our training sessions back in 2020, and they really want to reconnect with that material they were trying to learn. But then a new system would then say, yeah, this is the one you went to, but here's other material like We talked about Singularity in 2020. Here's the updated version of using Singularity the way things are working now. So we can bring in more intelligence into the training catalog. So I wanted to, yeah, and so we also, if you go to our event page, education and training, I'm not sure. Breadcrumbs, there's a big debate about how breadcrumbs should work. But if you go to advanced computing, this is our events here. But then we also, once it's over, it goes over into the training catalog because it was still an event to some people. It was training material. And then these might lead to the interactive video. Most of them do. Some of them don't have them. Like next week, my team didn't want to record. So we won't record. It'll be all hands-on material. Is that the kind of tool? Were you talking about that tool in particular? Yeah, I have a student, we've been working on cleaning it up and we're on interactive video 3, pulling it from YouTube. It's just Python. So happy to share whatever we've got. I think it's an interesting, and again, Jeff Sale is the one who came up with it from MOOC. Any other questions? Great, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. Hope you learned something, and again, ask me any questions you want.